The millionaire surprises and invites a black homeless woman to live with him after sweet request. The rain hit the pavement like a drum, wild and relentless. Beatrice Smith stood shivering under a flickering street lamp, clutching her daughter Emily close. At only 4, Emily's pale cheeks and labored breaths punched through Beatrice's heart like knives. They'd been on the run all day, cold and soaked to the bone, with nothing but a threadbare coat between them and the storm. Money was gone, help was a ghost, and Emily's cough, it was getting worse by the second. Then, as if the night itself was holding its breath, Beatrice saw the house. Tall, sharp-edged, almost unreal in the darkness. Lights flickered behind giant windows, casting shadows that danced like ghosts across the rain-slicked driveway. A mansion, yes, but not just rich. It screamed mystery and secrets, the kind of place stories are made of. She hesitated, numb and number. But she had nowhere else to go. The wind whipped, threatening to tear her and Emily away. With shaking hands, she rapped on the heavy door. It swung open before she could knock again. There, framed by the gold leaf frame of all she couldn't hope to grasp, stood Edward Baker. The man looked sharp as glass, suit perfectly pressed, a gaze cold enough to freeze blood. Yet something flickered there, something deeper than money or power, a loneliness that had nothing to do with wealth. "You need shelter." His voice was calm, surprising in its warmth. Beatrice blinked. Just one phrase, simple, and still it shattered something inside her. "Please," she whispered, barely knowing the words. Without a word, Edward beckoned her inside. The flash of his mansion swallowed them whole. Vast halls, polished floors that shone like mirrors. Paintings with eyes that seemed to follow her every move. The sound of the storm outside faded into a muffled roar. Days turned to nights, and Beatrice found herself tangled in a world she never imagined, working as caretaker, trying to balance Emily's fragile health and the strange rhythms of Edward's solitude. He watched her with quiet interest, sometimes smiling when she least expected it. The loneliness in his eyes softened. And she dared to hope. Then came the crash. Jack, Emily's father, long gone but never forgotten, stepping into the light without warning. His voice cut sharp, demanding what he believed was his right. The air snapped in Beatrice's lungs, her hands trembling as old wounds ripped open. Edward clenched his jaw, stepping forward, protective and wary. Tensions boiled in tight, angry bursts. Edward made a desperate offer, a deal meant to shield Beatrice and Emily, but that tasted bitter, like betrayal. Beatrice stood frozen, heart pounding in fractured rhythm. Could she trust this man? Could she survive this fight? Her answer was motion. She packed what little they had and left, pulling Emily into the night, away from everything. 15 days stretched long and empty. Edward's quiet house felt hollow without them. The cold leaked into the corners where laughter once tried to live. Then, a knock, a hope, a plea. Edward wanted back in, wanted to fix the fractures, to heal the scars. Beatrice sat by the window, rain tracing lines down the glass like tears she didn't shed. Her mind raced, torn. Could she forgive? Would love be enough? Outside, the storm raged on, unpredictable, raw, unstoppable. The future waited, dark and wide open. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without warning. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss out on any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're there, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know all the amazing people who are part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Beatrice sat by the window, her heart weighed down by uncertainty. The rain continued to beat against the glass, a relentless reminder of her choices. The knock on the door had sent a jolt of air. What did Edward truly want? As she stared into the storm, her thoughts were interrupted by a shattering crash. It came from the front of the house, a sound that thundered against her chest, like a warning scream. She leapt to her feet, heart racing. Fear clawed at her throat. "Edward?" Her voice trembled, but she knew. Deep down, she felt it. As she rushed toward the sound, she caught Emily peeking out from her small makeshift bed in the corner, her big eyes wide with terror. "Mama, I'm scared." The child's tiny voice trembled on the verge of tears. "Stay here, love," Beatrice whispered fiercely, a shaky determination coursing through her. She crept toward the door, the flickering lights casting ominous shadows on the walls as she moved. With a deep breath, she swung it open. What she saw left her breathless. Edward stood in the doorway, but he wasn't alone. Behind him, a dark figure loomed, face shrouded in shadows. The light barely illuminated the glint of steel, a knife glimmering under the moonlight. "Get back!" Edward shouted, pushing Beatrice behind him. She felt the heat radiate from him, his fear mingling with a protectiveness that stirred something deep inside her. But shock froze her to the spot. "Stay out of this, Baker," the figure snarled, stepping into the light. Beatrice gasped. The eyes staring back at her were all too familiar, dark and haunted. Jack, the father she thought she'd escaped. "Beatrice, I've come to get my daughter," he growled, the anger barely masked behind a facade of desperation. His gaze flipped to Edward, the contempt rolling off him like fog. "You think you can play house? You think you can keep her?" Beatrice stumbled back, memories rushing in like a flood. Jack's rage, the nights filled with screaming. "You left! You don't get to—" "I had no choice," he spat, a desperate plea mingling with venom. "I was trying to protect you." "Protect?" She felt rage burning beneath her skin. "You nearly ruined us." Edward's stature widened, a silent warning. "Leave now," he said, voice steady but low. "You're not welcome here." But Jack stepped forward, ignoring him. "That's the thing, isn't it? You think you can protect her? You don't even know who I really am." Suddenly, the air shifted, heavy and oppressive. Beatrice caught Edward's eyes, searching for reassurance, though what she found took the breath from her lungs. Affliction, doubt, and an unmistakable fear mirrored back at her. "What are you talking about?" Her voice cracked, desperation clinging to every word. Jack smirked, and the world around her spun. "Oh, there's so much you don't know. The money, the secrets, why we left, it all connects back to him." He pointed sharply at Edward, a sinister grin spreading across his face. "No." Beatrice felt the ground shift beneath her. "You're lying." "I wish I were," Jack sneered, voice cold. But now, it's time for the truth to unravel. Edward's not who you think he is, and you've been living a lie. As that revelation slashed through the stormy night, Beatrice stood frozen, heart racing. The world around her dimmed, a heavy weight bearing down on her. Could it be true? Behind her, Emily whimpered, a reminder of the innocence in a storm of chaos. Beatrice's world flipped upside down. The coming storm was only the beginning. What had she gotten herself into? And who could she really trust now? Beatrice's world flipped upside down. Her heart raced, pounding against her ribs like a wild animal desperately seeking escape. Jack's words echoed in the heavy air, twisting like a knife. Edward's gaze shifted between Beatrice and Jack, a storm brewing in his eyes, confusion mingling with fear. "Enough!" Edward's voice thundered. He took a step closer, shielding Beatrice instinctively. "You're not taking her anywhere." "You think you can play protector?" Jack taunted, his lip curling. "You don't know what you're dabbling in." Beatrice felt the edge of panic slicing through her. "What are you talking about?" she demanded, desperate for clarity. "What do you know about Edward?" Jack's smile dripped with malice. "It's not just about him. It's about all of us." He leaned forward, eyes glinting in the half-light. "You've stumbled into a web, Beatrice. A web spun from lies and buried truths." Before Beatrice could respond, the front door swung open wider. A figure dashed inside, soaked from the storm. It was a woman with wild, untamed hair and haunted eyes. "Stop! Don't!" she cried, voice trembling. Beatrice blinked. Who was this woman? Jenna? Jack gaped, confusion washing over his face. "What are you doing here?" A sudden chill swept through Beatrice. The woman's presence was unlike anything she'd expected. Stepping hesitantly closer, the storm outside raged, drowning out the cracks of thunder that matched the tension in the room. Edward isn't just a man of wealth. He's involved in something dark, something that has dragged us all into this nightmare. Stop. Jack shouted, but his pleas dissipated into the air like smoke. Jenna's voice rose, suddenly fierce. He knew everything and still kept you close. You were never safe." Beatrice's heart dropped. The room spun, shadows flickering around her. This couldn't be true. She had seen Edward's kindness, his care for Emily, but doubt gnawed at her like a hungry beast. "No, this is madness," Edward countered, anguish tightening his features. "I tried to protect you both." "Protect us? Or control us?" Jenna shot back, anger flaring. "Look around. Look at how deep this goes." As Beatrice processed the chaos, the lights flickered again, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Everything felt surreal, borrowed from a nightmare. Jenna looked into Beatrice's eyes with an urgency that pierced through the confusion. "He's connected to a bigger puzzle: money laundering, trafficking. The money that seemed to save you, Beatrice, it's stained. He's dangerous." Beatrice felt the ground beneath her start to crumble. Echoes of laughter, warmth, all intertwined with a reality too sinister to swallow. Could she have been living a lie this whole time? Suddenly, a deafening crash rang out from the living room. The walls shook, and in that moment, the windows shattered from the force, glass exploding like rain. "They found us," Jack shouted, fear etched into his face as the chaos spiraled around them. Something shifted in Edward's eyes, a flicker of recognition. No. The storm outside melded with the storm inside as the world began to unravel. With a scream, Beatrice grabbed Emily from her makeshift bed and ran toward the back door, adrenaline surging. "Stay close," she shouted, fear gripping her throat. In a flash, everything changed. The dark figure outside joined the fray, and as worlds collided, the truth twisted into something monstrous. Who could she trust now? The night was far from over, and the storm was just beginning. Beatrice felt the air shift, thick with tension and unspoken fears. The shattering glass fell around them, like a rain of broken promises. She tightened her hold on Emily, heart racing, her pulse hammering in her ears. "Run!" Edward shouted, his eyes fierce. He surged forward, putting himself between Beatrice and Jack. Thunder cracked again outside, an angry roar echoing the chaos inside. But before she could move, a figure lunged from the corner of the room, cloaked in darkness. A blur of motion that caught Jack off guard. A hand shot out, grabbing Jack by the collar, yanking him backward toward the shadows. "What the?" Jack cried out, instinctively reaching for his knife. But the figure was too fast. The room was chaos, shifting like quicksand. In that heartbeat, everything changed. The dark figures stepped into the light, their face whipping into focus. Beatrice's breath hitched. It was Jenna, but not the same Jenna. This one was different, clad in armor, steely determination etched into her features. "I'm so sorry, Beatrice," she said, voice low but resolute, holding Jack effortlessly, as if he weighed nothing. "This is the only way." Beatrice was frozen, 1,000 thoughts colliding. "What are you doing?" The air tightened around her, sharp like glass. Then, with a flick of her wrist, Jenna tossed Jack away like a rag doll. He stumbled, anger and confusion painting his face. "You betrayed us," he spat, eyes wild. "You were supposed to be on my side." "I never chose you, Jack," Jenna shot back, her voice fierce like cracking thunder. "What does that mean?" Beatrice whispered, heart racing. "What's happening?" "Jack isn't what he seems," Jenna pressed, dragging Beatrice closer, urgency spilling from her. "He's deep in this darkness, a web." Beatrice's heartbeat hammered in her ears, drowning out the thunder outside. "What do you mean? We left that life behind. We escaped." "Did you?" Jenna pressed. "You thought you were free, but Jack has been playing a long game." In the shock of it all, a hidden truth clawed its way to the surface. Jenna turned, urgency sharpening her voice. "Those nights, the ones he came back, he knows everything. He's tied to Edward." Beatrice's heart stuttered. "Tied? How?" "No, that's not possible." Jenna's eyes met hers, deep pools of understanding. They had an agreement. "Edward thought he was protecting you, but Jack's plan was always coming back, setting up shop in his shadow. You've been bait in a larger scheme for control." Just then, another crash echoed from the living room. Beatrice's head snapped toward the source of the sound. The door smashed open, more figures flooding inside. Shadows leapt through the doorway, menacing shapes rippling against the storm. "Now you'll see," Jack seethed, scrambling to his feet, renewed rage surging through him. "I'll end this." "Run, Beatrice!" Edward yelled, his voice slicing through the chaos. He stepped forward, fists clenched, standing firm against the incoming tide. But just as Beatrice hesitated, another figure emerged from the fray, a familiar face carving through the shadows. It was Edward's brother, Liam, whom she'd only caught the briefest of glimpses in the past. "Stop!" he shouted, eyes wide, urgency etched across his face. "I need to tell you the truth, all of it." The room was spinning, and Beatrice felt as if the walls were closing in. Jack was right, she realized. The tangled web was something far deeper, something she was only just beginning to grasp. "Who do we trust?" she gasped, torn between the swirling chaos, secrets, and unanswered questions. Liam took a deep breath, the silence heavy as the storm screamed outside. "Please, listen to me. I'm not who you think I am either." Beatrice's world tipped. She felt her knees weaken, and in that moment, all certainty shattered. The storm raged on, out of control, as she stood on the precipice of truth and illusion. What new horrors awaited her? And who could she possibly trust amidst this turmoil? Beatrice stood in the storm of chaos, uncertainty swirling around her like the wind outside. Jack, Jenna, and Edward faced one another, tension thick enough to slice through. The world felt like it was crumbling, every second heavy with dread. "Beatrice, listen." Liam's voice cut through the tension, his eyes wide with urgency. "You need to understand before it's too late. Edward's not your enemy, but Jack is." Before he could finish, a deafening crash echoed through the house, shaking the very foundation. All eyes turned toward the darkened doorway, where shadows surged and swallowed the flickering light. Just then, an explosion rocked the room. A blinding flash shattered the last fragments of normalcy, blinding them momentarily. When the light subsided, chaos erupted. Smoke filled the air, thick and choking. Shouts and frantic movements blurred the scene around them. Beatrice felt her heart skip, panic rising with every beat. Emily clung to her leg, clutching tightly as. "Run!" Edward shouted again, grabbing Beatrice and Emily's hands. He pulled them toward the back door, urgency and fear blending into fierce determination. Jenna moved to follow, but Jack lunged, desperate to regain control. "You can't take her!" he yelled, lunging at Edward, anger spilling from him like molten lava. But Jenna was quick, sidestepping Jack and grabbing his arm. "Stop! You don't know what you're doing," she cried out, her voice frantic. Just then, a figure emerged from the smoke, stepping into the light. It was a woman, but not just any woman. It was Beatrice's estranged mother, Claire. Her presence echoed like a ghost, haunting the edges of Beatrice's memory. She looked older, worn and weary, eyes wild with desperation. "Beatrice!" Claire gasped, her voice raw with emotion. "You need to listen." Beatrice's breath caught in her throat. "Mom, how are you here?" Confusion mixed with a spark of hope, but also fear. What was happening? "Jack, he sent me," Claire panted, eyes darting between them. "He wanted to bring you back, to finish what he started." Beatrice's heart raced. "What do you mean? What did Jack start?" Claire took a shaky step forward, revealing a hidden secret that horrified Beatrice. "When you were born, Jack made a deal, a dangerous one. He promised to deliver you to a higher power in exchange for protection." The room spun, each revelation reeling them further into madness. "No!" Beatrice cried. "You can't mean that." "Yes, this is bigger than all of us." Claire's voice trembled with urgency. "Jack's been lying. He needs you back for his plan to unfold, to reclaim his power." Fear poured through Beatrice like ice, chilling. She turned to Edward, searching for a flicker of reassurance. But the look in his eyes mirrored her dread. Everything she thought she had known was collapsing like a house of cards. "Why didn't you tell me?" She turned to Edward, her voice thick with betrayal. "Because," he whispered, hesitating, "I thought I could protect you both. I never knew Jack was connected to this." Panic surged as Jack's laughter rang through the chaos. "You still don't get it? No one can save you." Suddenly, a blinding flash detonated through the air, another explosion rocking the house. Beatrice instinctively pulled Emily close, shielding her from the incoming debris. The walls shook, and a heavy beam fell, narrowly missing them. Then everything went dark. When Beatrice opened her eyes, she found herself in a different place. A small room, poorly lit. A single bulb flickered above her. There were no signs of the chaos, just a silence that felt ominous. She glanced around, the reality of her surroundings dawning on her. It was a cell. The reality hit hard. Where am I? She felt the weight of Emily's small body beside her, both of them devoid of their previous safety. Realization gripped her gut. Had Jack truly orchestrated this? Why was she here? What did he want with them? Outside, the storm still howled, but inside her, another storm brewed. She felt betrayal wrap around her, cold and suffocating. Could anyone be trusted? Beatrice clenched her fists, determination hardening her resolve. Whatever lay ahead, she would fight. She had to protect Emily. But then in the shadows of the room, a familiar face stepped into the light. "Surprised to see me?" Jack smirked, the darkness around him deepening the shadows of his eyes. "Welcome to my new world." A chill ran down Beatrice's spine. Everything she thought she knew had transformed. And as the door closed behind him, sealing their fate, one thought echoed in her mind. They were in deeper than she ever imagined. Beatrice's heart hammered in her chest as Jack advanced, the shadows clinging to him like a shroud. "Welcome to my new world," he sneered, each word dripping with malice. The dim light flickered above them, unsettling, as if mirroring the turmoil brewing inside her. "What do you want?" Beatrice's voice trembled, urgency clawing at her throat. This was no longer just a confrontation. It felt like a reckoning. She wrapped her arms protectively around Emily, holding her tight as her breath quickened. Jack laughed, a low, mocking sound that twisted her stomach. "What do I want? I want you to see the truth, Beatrice. All of it." He stepped closer, menace lurking in his eyes. "You think getting rid of me was enough? You're part of something much bigger." Suddenly, the heavy door slammed shut behind him with a bang that echoed like thunder. The air felt electric with tension, every second stretching into an eternity. Beatrice could feel Emily's small body shivering against her. "Why now, Jack? Why all this?" She was desperate for answers, eager for clarity, but dread was running deeper than her questions. "Because the game has changed," he replied, a twisted smile creeping across his face. "And you're the last piece I need to play." She felt a wave of nausea wash over her. "What are you talking about?" Before he could answer, the lights overhead flickered again, and there was a sudden hush, as if the storm outside had paused. Beatrice instinctively held her breath, the silence pressing heavily around them. Jack's eyes glinted with a twisted kind of joy as he leaned in closer, his breath hot against her cheek. "Do you want to know why I came back? Why I left you with Edward? You thought he was your savior, didn't you?" Jack's voice lowered, each word dripping with poison. "I let you believe that." A creeping dread unfurled in Beatrice's stomach. "You're lying." I wish I were, he said, and then his tone shifted, growing more sinister. I've been setting the stage for you. You were meant to be my gateway, my path to reclaiming what I lost. What came next left her breathless. You see, Edward, oh, he's no saint. He thought family money could buy safety, but... Jack paused dramatically, his smile widening. He's my half-brother. The revelation hit like a wave. Beatrice staggered back, the world spinning around her. No, it can't be true. Jack leaned in, eyes gleaming. Oh, but it is. You're part of a bloodline that's been fighting for control, wealth, power, revenge, all of it tied to us. Beatrice's mind raced. Everything she thought, she knew, shattered like glass. But he helped us. He protected us. That was the plan, Beatrice, to draw you in. He smiled, a predator unveiling its trap. Do you really think he cared for you? You were just a pawn. And now I'm here to claim what's mine. Before Beatrice could respond, another figure appeared in the doorway, cloaked in shadows. A familiar face, Liam. This has gone too far, Jack. You don't know what you're playing with. The tension thickened. Get out of here, Liam. You don't belong. Jack snarled, but Liam stepped forward, fists clenched. No, you don't get to destroy her life. Not again. In that moment, the walls shook, a loud bang echoed, and the ground beneath their feet trembled, sending shockwaves through Beatrice's every nerve. Dust filled the air, and she felt her heart drop. Suddenly, everything went dark. When the light returned, Beatrice found herself in a different reality. A room vibrating with energy, men in suits, faces she didn't recognize, all whispering in tight clusters. They stood around a table covered in documents, their expressions grave. Time for the reveal, one man stated, his voice cold and calculated. It's time to decide the future of the Baker legacy. Beatrice's heart raced. What legacy? What had she stumbled into? She turned to Jack, who now stood beside her, a crooked smile on his face. You see, Beatrice, the storm was just the beginning. Welcome to the true game. The realization hit her harder than any blow. This was no ordinary struggle. This was a war over power, and she was right in the middle of it. What other secrets lay beneath? Beatrice felt the weight of their reality shift, every whispered conversation tightening the knot in her stomach. Jack's smirked revelation hung in the air, stinging her like cold rain. She glanced around, eyes darting from Liam's frantic expression to Edward's tense posture. What had she stepped into? What kind of game was this? I don't believe you, she shouted, desperation lacing her voice. Her heart raced faster than ever, pounding against her ribs as she clutched Emily tighter. You're lying, Jack. You think I'm supposed to just fall for your tricks? Just like that? Jack's amusement faded. Do you really think you can ignore the truth? It's in your blood, Beatrice. Liam took a step forward, his position defensive. We've got to get out of here. This isn't safe. Suddenly, the ground trembled again, and the lights overhead flickered, threatening to plunge them into darkness once more. Beatrice could feel it coming, the claustrophobia crawling in her chest, desperation blossoming like a flower, ready to burst open. Enough, Edward finally shouted, breaking the standoff, his voice like thunder. We need answers now, and we need to protect them. But at that moment, chaos erupted. Without warning, the ceiling above cracked, and dust fell like a blizzard. The lights above flickered wildly before plunging them into darkness. A loud boom, and then there was silence. Beatrice's breath hitched. Darkness wrapped around her like a ghost. She couldn't see, Emily, she called out, panic rising. The fear of losing her daughter flooded her senses like a tidal wave. I'm here, Mama. Emily's small voice broke through the shroud, but it was shaky. Stay close, Beatrice cried, fumbling for the walls to guide her. The echo of shuffling feet approached. Were they alone? Then a flash of light broke through the fog, a glow from behind the scattered furniture, like an ethereal hand reaching out. A figure emerged from the haze. It was Claire. But this wasn't the mother Beatrice remembered. Claire seemed different, more youthful, powerful, energy radiating like the sun. Beatrice, she shouted, her voice ringing clear. I'm here to show you the truth. What truth? You disappeared, Beatrice screamed, heart pounding. She could barely grasp what was happening. Your father, Claire said, eyes wild. He's alive. This is all connected. I had to leave to keep you safe, to keep you from him. The words struck like lightning. What? Your father, Claire hesitated, and the air pulsed with tension. He's been pulling the strings all along. He knows where we are. We can't stay here. Just then, a series of shadows swarmed through the doorway, and Beatrice felt her heart stop. It was a group, moving swiftly, a band of menacing figures cloaked in darkness. Their eyes shined unnaturally bright, and in the forefront stood a man tall and imposing. Jack, he boomed, voice low and gravelly, cutting through the chaos. Jack's glare intensified, disbelief skimming the surface. How did you find us? From behind, Claire called out, Run! You need to leave now! But before Beatrice could react, the tall figure smiled, a familiar, chilling grin that froze her blood. There's nowhere to run. This ends tonight. Dad? Jack's voice cracked, confusion and anger twisting together. Suddenly, everything clicked into place for Beatrice. The shadows surrounding the man, how each one felt so familiar, the connections she had never recognized. You've known this whole time? She whispered, betraying her disbelief, and then the man stepped into the light. Welcome to the family reunion, he announced with an eerie charm. Shock rippled through the room. Edward was straining to hold his composure, feet planted firmly. What do you want? He asked, voice steady yet trembling at the edges. Beatrice gazed at her father, whose presence felt both like home and a nightmare. Suddenly, realization dawned on her, as well as the consequences. Jack was not just her past, he was her family. And the storm of chaos they were living in, it is just the beginning of something much darker. The tension was thick. This was betrayal woven into bloodlines. This wasn't just about her. This was about power, control, and a family legacy steeped in darkness she could never have imagined. What would happen next as secrets unraveled? Together they all stood at the brink of a terrifying revelation. Beatrice's mind spun as her father's presence loomed before her, an unwelcome shadow from a past she thought she had escaped. Was it true? Was Jack right about everything? Were she and Edward caught in a game they couldn't possibly comprehend? Beatrice, it's time you understand your place in this, her father said, a smug satisfaction curling on his lips. You were always meant to be part of this legacy, our legacy. No, she shouted, the word bursting from her like a balloon punctured by a pin. You don't get to decide my fate anymore. But the air crackled with tension as Jack drew closer, eyes alight with a dangerous mix of anger and desperation. You don't even know what you've done, Beatrice. You think you can just walk away from this? Suddenly, the ground shook. Not a simple tremor, but a violent quake that sent everyone staggering. A tidal wave of adrenaline surged through Beatrice. She grabbed Emily and pulled her tight. "Stay with me," she shouted, eyes wide, heart racing. Liam rushed to her side. "We have to get out." His voice was urgent, fear lacing his tone. But her father stood firm, refusing to budge. "There's no escape," he boomed. But then the ceiling began to crack above them, and plaster rained down like confetti. Dust filled the air, a choking cloud that smelled of fear and betrayal. Beatrice coughed, struggling to breathe, her heart pounding, adrenaline surging. "Run!" Edward shouted again, his face taut with fear. Then, as the dust settled, a figure moved through the smoke, a silhouette emerging like a ghost in a fog. Beatrice squinted through the haze, trying to process what this meant. The figure stepped into the dim light, and her breath caught in her throat. It was her mother, Claire, but she looked different, younger, more powerful. The forgotten years seemed to vanish with her presence. "What are you doing here?" Beatrice gasped, shock mixing with an unexpected flicker of hope. "I had to warn you," Claire said, and her voice trembled with urgency. "They're coming for you all. They're here now." "What do you mean?" Jack sneered, dismissing her. But Claire's eyes flicked to Beatrice with a fire she had never seen before. "It's not just about being a baker, Beatrice. You're a key player in something much bigger, something ancient." As Claire spoke, the lights flickered, plunging them into a darkness that felt alive. Then, boom! An explosion rocked the house, throwing Beatrice off her feet. Emily cried out, clinging onto her mother. When the dust cleared, another group appeared. This time, they weren't the shadowy figures from before, but polished men and women in sleek suits. They moved with purpose and confidence, like wolves among sheep. One stepped forward, tall and imposing. "Is this the family reunion?" he announced, the words oozing contempt. The man wore a familiar face, a face that sent cold shards of realization slicing through Beatrice. "Marcus," she whispered, recognizing Edward's brother. He had been hidden in the shadows, orchestrating every detail. "Glad you could join us," he said, stepping closer with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "What have you done?" Edward shouted, horror etched on his face. But Marcus merely shrugged, his expression the embodiment of disdain. "Everything you wanted to avoid. The true nature of our family's legacy is about power, and it can't be ignored any longer." The walls trembled again as the group moved closer. Beatrice felt the oppressive weight of secrets pressing down on her. "What are you doing?" she cried, feeling lost and confused. Then, as if the world had been waiting for this moment, Marcus pointed a finger at Jack. "You've been a pawn in this game, brother, but now you're about to realize this isn't just about family. It's about survival." Suddenly, Jack lunged, rage coursing through him. "I won't let you take her from me." But before Beatrice could react, Marcus pulled something from his jacket, a sleek black device. "Enough playing nice," he announced, pressing a button. The air crackled, and in the next moment, a blinding flash erupted, enveloping them all. When the light faded, Beatrice found herself in a completely different setting, a vast, sterile room illuminated by harsh fluorescent lights. the kind that made everything feel too bright, too real. What just happened? Where were they? Jack's face fell, confusion replacing fury. The tension snapped as a robotic voice filled the air, echoing off the cold walls. Welcome to the Nexus. You are now part of Project Rebirth. Beatrice's blood turned to ice. Project Rebirth? What was that? The implications were terrifying. As gasps filled the room, she looked around, searching desperately for Emily. But when she locked eyes with Jack, confusion turned into horror. He wasn't just her husband. He wasn't just her past. He was tied to something even darker than she could have imagined. And as Beatrice stood at the precipice of this horrifying new reality, the weight of her choices crashed down like thunder. What would come next? What horrors awaited them in this twisted legacy? The line between her allies and enemies was blurred, leading her adrift in a sea of uncertainty. Beatrice felt the cold grip of fear tighten around her heart. The sterile lighting above cast a harsh glow on their bewildered faces, amplifying the dread lurking in the shadows. She held Emily tightly, adrenaline coursing through her veins, as Jack stood looming, an unsettling edge in his eyes. "What does Project Rebirth mean?" Beatrice shouted, trying to make sense of it all. She demanded answers, yet found only confusion swirling around her. The atmosphere was charged, every breath heavy with unspoken fears. "Welcome to the beginning of a new order." Marcus stepped forward, his voice smooth yet threatening, drowning out Beatrice's question. "This is where the game changes. We're not just a family, we're a legacy that will reshape everything." "I don't want any part of this," Beatrice screamed back, anger pooling with desperation. She could feel Emily shaking against her, confusion etched across the child's innocent face. "Too late for that, Beatrice," Jack hissed, a flicker of madness dancing in his eyes. "We're all in this together now, whether you like it or not." Before she could respond, the lights above flickered again, buzzing like a faulty connection. A mechanical voice returned, this time with more urgency. "Status critical. Intruders detected. Emergency protocols engaged." What does that mean? Beatrice felt panic rising like a tidal wave. "I don't know," Edward shouted, his face drained of color. "Everyone, stay close." Suddenly, the floor shook, and a loud siren blared. Sirens, alarms echoed around them like angry wasps, making her heart race faster. The walls felt like they were closing in, thickening with tension. But then it happened. Out of nowhere, a hidden door slid open on the far side of the room, revealing a dark corridor that stretched into the unknown. A figure rushed in, hair wild, eyes wild with urgency, a woman with an unmistakable presence. "Everyone, move!" she yelled, rushing toward them. Beatrice's heart raced. It was Jenna, but not the Jenna she remembered. This Jenna wore a fierce determination that seemed to glow in the dim light. "Jenna!" Beatrice called, relief surging through her as Jenna hurried their way, her expression taut and serious. "Trust me," Jenna shouted, grabbing Beatrice's arm. "We can't stay here. It's not just Jack and Marcus you need to worry about." "What are you talking about?" Beatrice's voice trembled, desperation mixing with confusion. "The project? It's bigger than you realize." Jenna's eyes sparkled with a frantic energy. "It's about control over everything, over us. We have to escape before they activate the real purpose behind this facility." As Jenna spoke, concealed doors opened behind her like a maelstrom of chaos. A myriad of masked figures stormed into the room, purpose etched in their movements, weapons drawn. "Run!" Liam shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. He grabbed Emily's hand, pulling her away from the gathering storm. But before they could move, the sudden sound of gunfire rung out. Bullets ricocheted off the walls, and Beatrice screamed as the world erupted into chaos. She pushed forward, trying to shield Emily, but everything turned to frantic chaos. In that whirlwind moment, just when escape seemed within reach, Jenna turned back, her expression shifting from urgency to something far more haunting. "I'm so sorry, Beatrice. I had to do this." Beatrice blinked, confusion mixing with dread. "What do you mean?" And then, within an instant, everything shifted. Jenna pulled a small, sleek device from her pocket and pressed a button. The world around them erupted in blinding light. The ground quaked violently, the air crackled like lightning, and everything went white. When the light faded, Beatrice found herself standing in an ordinary living room, safe and sound. But when she looked around, she froze. It was her childhood home, familiar but unrecognizable. The scent of her mother's cooking wafted from the kitchen, and laughter echoed from the dining room. "What?" she gasped, her heart racing. Jack and Emily stood beside her, unharmed, awestruck. In the corner, a family photo sat on the mantel. And in that photo stood a smiling woman with a familiar face, a younger version of her mother. "Mom?" Beatrice whisper shouted, disbelief washing over her. "No, it can't be," Jack murmured, realization dawning across his face. "This isn't right." But as Beatrice's heart raced, Jenna's voice echoed in her mind, a haunting reminder of the reality she now faced. Each twist of fate, every secret uncovered, now felt like a haunting puzzle piece falling into place. What was this reality? What had transpired? As shock coursed through her veins, the crashing waves of doubt and uncertainty settled over her like a dark cloud. What if this was all a dream? Or worse, a trap? And what had they really escaped if they were standing at the threshold of something hauntingly familiar? The truth was far from clear, and as the memories began to flicker around her, like a dying flame, everything she thought she knew wavered. The weight of this new revelation spiraled into the depths of her mind. Where would this lead them? And what darkness would they have to face again? The night was just beginning. Beatrice's heart raced as she stood in her childhood home, everything around her both familiar and terrifying. Memories flooded her like a tumultuous wave, overwhelming and haunting. "This isn't real," Jack shouted, eyes wide as his mind raced to catch up. "It feels real enough," Beatrice replied, fear tight in her chest. She could feel Emily trembling next to her, staring wide-eyed at the unfolding chaos. Marcus chuckled darkly, cutting through the air, thick with confusion. "You're in a simulation, Beatrice. This is a facade, a test. We're seeing who you really are." "But why?" she pressed, panic and determination blending in her voice. "What do you want from us?" "Your loyalty, and it's time to see if you can prove it," he smirked, leaning against the wall like an idle predator, watching them squirm. In that moment, everything felt heavy. Beatrice's thoughts spun wildly. She was cornered by the remnants of what felt like a different life. but within the grasp of manipulation, the walls seemed to close in, shaky but unyielding. Then something changed. Jenna emerged from the shadows, looking fierce and resolute. "Beatrice!" she called, urgency lacing her tone. "This isn't the truth. You need to remember what really matters." Beatrice felt a flicker of warmth. "What did you?" "Your daughter. You have to protect Emily at all costs. This is a distraction." Before Jenna could finish, a deafening crash tore through the house. The lights flickered ominously, and shadows swirled. "They're coming!" Jenna shouted. "This way!" Jack yelled, yanking Beatrice and Emily towards an exit barely visible through the haze of dust. With every step, each breath felt like a race against time. "Don't look back," Beatrice urged Emily, wincing at the thundering chaos behind them. Through the narrow hallways, adrenaline pumped in their veins. Each sound echoed. Chaos reigned behind them, but urgency drove them forward. Together, they burst into what felt like a vast, open space. Freedom was in sight. The world outside was surreal, distorted, and too bright, but they were alive. They stumbled out from what felt like a nightmare, blinking as the reality of their surroundings settled in. "Are you okay?" Beatrice turned to Emily, who nodded but looked shaken. Relief washed over her. Suddenly, a chilling voice sliced through the air. "You think you can escape so easily?" It was her father, stepping into the light, face twisted with something dark and fatherly. "No!" Beatrice shouted, stepping in front of Emily. "This ends now." But before the confrontation could escalate, Jenna moved closer, eyes fierce. "We're done playing your twisted game, and you're going to pay for this," her father spat, fierce and filled with rage as the air grew heavy again. But in that critical moment, something shifted. Beatrice felt a surge of resolution. She wasn't just running. She wasn't just a pawn in this game. "You'll never control me," she asserted, surprising herself with her own fierceness. As they stood there, the tide began to turn. Jenna advanced, fearlessness igniting the energy around them. "Stop!" she commanded, voice rising with fervor. And just as she spoke, a flash of light erupted, shattering the air. Everything faded to black. And then, silence. Beatrice found herself back in her familiar space, yet it felt different, lighter. The oppressive weight of the past was gone, leaving just a sense of calm. "What happened?" she whispered. But as she looked around, she saw people gathering, faces bright with relief and friendship, a warmth she hadn't felt in too long. They were together again. Realizing the bonds they'd forged, she hugged Emily tightly, heart swelling with love. "It's over. We're safe now." But in the distance, she could still hear echoes of their past. "Is it really over?" Jack whispered, uncertainty creeping back into his voice. Beatrice didn't know. She held on to Emily, fear mingling with hope. The family legacy might never fully fade. The battle between light and shadow may continue on, but they were alive, and they would fight. Just as Beatrice took a step forward, a shadow lingered in the doorway, leaving the past just a whisper behind. Perhaps their journey was far from finished. You have to hold on to hope, and now it's time to take action. I need you to immediately subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any upcoming exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about this thrilling finale. And don't wait 1 second longer to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this ending. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel.